in the silence of an abandoned outpost, where one old mechanic thought he had been forgotten by the galaxy, a single broken signal cracked the emptiness. And what he found was not just wreckage, but two fragile alien hatchlings that would change his life forever. Hunted by smugglers, protected by an ancient mother, and bound to a destiny he never asked for. His fight for tomorrow was about to begin. If you are new to the channel, then please subscribe to the channel and like the video, and tell us in the comments where you're watching from. Now, let's jump into the story. The repair dock of Outpost 42 was filled with the sound of nothing. It was not the soft nothing of peace, but the heavy nothing of abandonment. A silence that pressed on the walls and floors like a second layer of dust. Harlan Drake, known by no one these days but himself, sat hunched over the guts of a worn-out engine. His hands moved with the dull certainty of a man who had been repeating the same task for decades, expecting no surprises, finding no joy, yet still continuing because that was all he knew. He muttered to the empty room as his wrench slipped. Another exciting night in paradise. His words echoed back to him, and he almost laughed at how pathetic the sound was. Paradise was a lonely station orbiting the barren planet Orionis, where two suns burned at opposite times and golden plains stretched endlessly below. No families lived here anymore. No crew filled the sleeping quarters. Once Outpost 42 held 12 workers, but now it held only one man who had told the evacuation board to leave him alone, and so they had. Harlan had not seen another living soul in years, not human, not alien, not anything. His companions were machines too old to matter to anyone else. He had been their keeper long after the galaxy stopped caring about them. Solitude suited him well enough, or so he always told himself. That fragile calm cracked when the emergency scanner on the far wall coughed to life. Static filled the air like a long-forgotten ghost clearing its throat. Harlan dropped his wrench, the clatter so loud in the silence that his pulse jumped. He had not heard a signal in over 3 years. He leaned forward, staring at the flickering console. A broken voice cut through the static. Rogue vessel, cargo breach, repeat, cargo lost. The message dissolved back into hissing noise. Harlan's jaw tightened. A distress call in this part of space could only mean bad news. Smugglers ran this sector. And smugglers carried dangerous things. Just my luck, he whispered, rubbing his temple. He knew the rule of survival. Don't get involved. But another rule, buried deeper inside him, still stirred. The one that had made him a mechanic in the first place. When something breaks, you fix it. Slowly, with the hesitation of someone dragging old bones into motion, Harlan stood. His joints complained, his back protested, but he moved anyway. He reached for his plasma torch. The pulse rifle locked in storage stayed where it was. Harlan had learned the hard way that violence only gave birth to more violence. The cutter was enough. The outpost's hangar bay moaned as he powered up his hover hauler. It was a vehicle almost as stubborn as he was. The engine rattled, the frame creaked, and the console lights flickered, but it rumbled to life. Harlan muttered, "Don't quit on me now," as he guided it out across the ridgeline. The world below was harsh and endless. Winds rolled over the golden fields, bending the tall grass like an ocean wave. Above, the twin suns cast crooked shadows across the land, one sinking, one rising, neither willing to leave. For years, Harlan had watched this view without caring, but tonight, it carried weight. Something alive was out there, something broken. Black smoke finally rose in the distance. the universal signal of disaster. Harlan followed it, steering carefully over the uneven ground. His hauler wheezed in complaint with every mile, but it kept moving. When he reached the crash site, his chest tightened. The vessel was torn open, its hull ripped like a sardine can. Jagged metal scattered across scorched earth. Pieces of containment nets sparked weakly, their illegal design unmistakable. He knew those nets. They were banned across half the galaxy for the kind of creatures they were meant to trap. The smugglers were gone. Either they had fled with escape pods or been consumed by whatever they had been carrying. The smart bet was that they had abandoned ship as soon as the cargo broke free. Harlan climbed down from the hauler, boots crunching over burnt soil. The air smelled of ozone and char. The silence here was deeper, almost waiting. He scanned the wreckage, searching for movement, listening for any sound. Then he heard it. Not a roar, not a growl, but something quieter, a sound so unexpected in this graveyard that it froze him in place. A whimper. It came again, fragile and desperate, from inside the twisted wreck. Harlan's throat tightened. Every instinct screamed at him to walk away. This was smuggler's business. This was danger waiting to swallow him whole. Yet his feet carried him forward anyway. He pushed aside a shard of hull plating and peered into the shadowed gap. There, tangled in the sparking nets, were two small figures. Scales glimmered faintly. ... There, colors shifting like liquid sapphire under the dying light. One creature lay still, a wing bent at a sickening angle. The other stood over it, trembling but defiant, tiny teeth bared in a warning too brave for its size. Harlan's breath caught. He had seen their kind before, but only from a distance. Rare, feared, hunted, and these were young, no larger than wolves. He whispered, "Well, this is trouble." The uninjured one locked eyes with him. 4 golden orbs that burned with intelligence far older than their years. The look was not animal. It was a question, sharp and silent. And in that moment, Harlan Drake, the forgotten mechanic of Outpost 42, understood one thing with absolute clarity. His life of silence had just ended. Harlan Drake had never been good at walking away from broken things. Machines, people, promises, it didn't matter. If something lay in pieces, his hands itched to fix it. Now he found himself staring at the most impossible brokenness of all. 2 alien hatchlings, tangled in forbidden nets, abandoned by the smugglers who had trapped them. The larger one stood its ground, growling through tiny fangs. Golden eyes locked on him with a warning that said, "Come closer and see what happens." The smaller one lay half-collapsed, its wing twisted at an angle that made Harlan's stomach turn. Sparks from the damaged net sent jolts through its body every few seconds, and each time the larger sibling pressed closer, shielding it. Harlan crouched slowly, keeping his voice low and steady. "Easy now," he said, like he was speaking to a skittish engine about to stall. "I'm not here to hurt you." His tone surprised even himself. It was softer than he had used in years, the kind he once used when his daughter was young and afraid of storms. The hatchlings didn't understand his words, but they seemed to understand his tone. The defiant one tilted its head, curious despite its fear. Harlan pulled the plasma cutter from his belt. Immediately, both creatures tensed. "For the net, not for you," he explained, demonstrating by slicing through a piece of wreckage nearby. "See? Just a fancy pair of scissors." Cutting them free was painstaking. The net was designed to hold creatures strong enough to bend steel, and its fibers clung like living wire. Every move had to be slow, careful, so the cutter's heat didn't scorch their scales. 20 minutes later, the last strand gave way, and the hatchlings were finally free. Harlan expected them to bolt. He half hoped they would. Instead, the injured one collapsed fully, gasping shallow breaths. The other whimpered, nudging its sibling, then looked at him with desperation written plain in its golden eyes. Harlan swore under his breath. "This is not my problem," he told the universe. "I'm 73, and I don't do babysitting." But the words felt hollow. With a sigh that carried years of loneliness, he shrugged off his jacket and wrapped the injured hatchling eye. He was startled by how light it was. Hollow bones, he remembered from somewhere. Creatures built for flight. The other hatchling did something that stopped his heart. It stepped forward, tugged gently on his sleeve with its teeth, and then pulled, as if saying, "This way." "You want me to follow?" Harlan asked. The hatchling tugged again. "I don't speak alien," he muttered, "but there's really only one place to go." The hover hauler groaned as he loaded them up. The ride back to the outpost was surreal. The injured one lay wrapped in his jacket, breathing shallow but steady. The other perched on the hauler bed, wings out for balance, eyes scanning the horizon like a sentry. Harlan kept glancing at them in the rear view, half expecting them to vanish like some hallucination brought on by years of isolation. Back at the repair bay, he cleared off his largest work table, brushing aside bolts and tools. He laid the injured hatchling down with care he hadn't used in a long time. "All right," he announced to the empty air, or maybe to them. "Rules of the shop. No eating the tools, no setting anything on fire, and absolutely no dying on my watch." The uninjured hatchling let out a chirp, a sound halfway between music and static. Harlan decided to take it as agreement. He dug out his old medical kit, covered in dust. His hands remembered what to do. Clean the wound, reset the bone, wrap it tight. The hatchling hissed once, a sound that made the hair on his arms rise. But it didn't bite. Instead, the sibling pressed close, humming low notes that carried comfort. "You two got names?" Harlan asked, more to keep himself calm than anything. "No? Fine. You," he pointed to the injured one. "You're Ember. Makes sense, the way your chest glows. And you," he nodded at the chirping one. "You're Flicker, because you can't sit still." To his surprise, Flicker tilted its head as if amused. Once Ember's wing was set and bandaged, Harlan fed them both from his emergency rations. They crunched through the protein bars with clear satisfaction. Harlan leaned back, exhausted, and muttered, "Well, congratulations. I've gone from forgotten mechanic to alien caretaker in a single evening." The hatchlings curled up together on the work table, scales shimmering under the bay's dull lights. Flicker rested a wing across Ember protectively, while Ember's breathing finally slowed into something steady. They looked fragile, vulnerable, nothing like the terrifying predators he had once glimpsed from a distance. Harlan sat on a crate, rubbing his eyes. "Your parents are probably out there searching for you," he said softly. "And me? I'm just the fool who picked up the call." Flicker lifted its head and stared at him again with those golden eyes. Then, in a gesture that startled him, it stretched its wing just enough to brush his knee. Harlan froze. It wasn't an accident. It was contact, comfort, maybe even gratitude. He cleared his throat, suddenly uncomfortable. "Don't get used to it. Soon as Ember can fly, you're both gone. I don't do roommates." But the words didn't convince even him, because as he watched them drift into sleep, something long buried stirred in his chest. It wasn't happiness, not exactly, but it was close enough to make him feel alive for the first time in years. Harlan leaned back, listening to the hum of the station. The silence wasn't so heavy anymore. It carried breath now. It carried purpose. And for a man who had lived too long in loneliness, that was more dangerous than any smugglers or poachers could ever be. Dawn on Orionis arrived with a blaze of orange light. The twin suns rose together for once, flooding Outpost 42 in a glow that cut through the dusty airlocks and rusty beams. Harlan Drake stood in the repair bay, brewing his usual bitter drink from recycled water and powdered stimulant, pretending life was still ordinary. It wasn't. Not anymore. Behind him, 2 alien hatchlings lay curled on a work table. Ember, the smaller one, slept with its wing bound tightly in makeshift bandages. Flicker, ever restless, lifted its head at every small sound, golden eyes glimmering like sparks in the dim light. Harlan had told himself 100 times he was only keeping them alive until they could leave. Yet every time he looked at them, he felt that strange tug, responsibility, connection, something heavier than he wanted to admit. As he sipped the bitter drink, a vibration rolled through the station. It wasn't mechanical. It was deeper, older, alive. The walls seemed to hum with the sound. Harlan froze, mug halfway to his lips. Then he heard it again. A steady thrum that rattled the bolts in the bulkheads and set the floor vibrating under his boots. He rushed to the viewport and nearly dropped the mug. Descending from the sky with impossible grace was a creature so vast it made his outpost look like a toy. 40 feet from nose-tee. Wings wide enough to shadow the landing yard. Scales blacker than midnight and gleaming like polished stone. It landed outside the repair bay with the quiet control of a predator that had nothing left to fear. "Oh no," Harlan muttered. "Your mom's here." Flicker leapt off the work table, chirping excitedly. Ember stirred, weak but alert, trying to stand despite the bandaged wing. Harlan swallowed hard. He had no idea if the mother would see him as savior or threat. The great creature lowered her head, eyes glowing gold, ancient and merciless. They locked onto Harlan through the viewport. The weight of her gaze pinned him in place. His instincts screamed at him to hide, to run, to surrender. Instead, he set down his mug with hands that trembled only slightly. "Guess we're doing this," he whispered. He hit the bay door controls. The massive panels slid open with a groan, spilling in hot air that smelled of ozone and something wild. Something not of this world. The mother stepped forward, claws gouging deep lines into the reinforced concrete. She leaned down until her head filled the opening, close enough that Harlan could feel the heat radiating from her scales. Flicker rushed to her side, chirping frantically in what Harlan assumed was a rapid explanation. "Mom, this human fixed Ember, and also his food tastes awful, but he's not useless." Ember limped forward more slowly, casting glowing eyes toward the towering figure with a mixture of relief and fear. The mother rumbled deep in her chest, a sound Harlan felt in his bones. Her gaze shifted back to him. And then it happened. The voice did not come through his ears. It arrived in his mind. Not words exactly, but impressions, pictures, emotions pressed straight into thought. Gratitude, caution, judgment. Harlan staggered back, gripping the edge of the work table. "Holy, you're telepathic." "Amusement, correction, resonance," came the reply. "Not telepathy, something older." Harlan rubbed his temple. "Great, talking directly into my head. That's not alarming at all." The mother showed him flashes of memory. Her kind traveling between stars long before humans learned fire. Their way of growing technology as part of their bodies, instead of building it with tools. Then came darker visions. Hunters, poachers, nets like the one that had trapped Ember and Flicker. Mere extinction. Desperation. Finally, she showed him something else. An offer. A bond. Guardian. Harlan shook his head. You've got the wrong man. I'm too old. I fix machines, not children. I live alone because I'm broken, not because I'm noble. Disagreement. Observation. Human damaged like self, but patient, steady, needed. Needed? Harlan laughed bitterly. I'm a hermit in a graveyard. The only thing I've proven is how long a man can survive without company. The mother tilted her massive head. Ember pressed close to her leg, but Flicker returned to Harlan's side. Golden eyes fixed on him with an expression that felt uncomfortably like trust. Through the bond came another wave of thought. Children trust. Rare. Harlan's chest tightened. For years he had lived with nothing but silence, pretending it suited him. Now, two fragile lives looked at him like he mattered. This is insane, he whispered. Agreement. Also necessary, the mother responded. He felt the weight of her judgment, the hope of the younglings, and the emptiness of his own life laid bare. Slowly, with a sigh that seemed to echo years of solitude, he nodded. Fine, I'll help. But don't expect me to know what I'm doing. Joy, relief, gratitude. The connection deepened. Suddenly he could sense them. Ember's quiet resolve, Flicker's boundless curiosity, the mother's wisdom layered with grief. He gasped, knees buckling. Flicker steadied him with a gentle nudge, as if the small creature knew exactly what was happening. The mother lowered her head, brushing her snout close to his chest. Warmth flooded through him. Aches that had plagued him for decades eased. His back straightened. Strength returned. Harlan stared at her. What did you just do? Gift. Guardian must endure. More strength with time, with bond. He shook his head, overwhelmed. So let me get this straight. You want me to be what? A babysitter for dragons? Amusement. Correction. Not babysitter. Guardian. Teacher. Bridge between worlds. Outside, the sky darkened as clouds rolled across the twin suns. The bond hummed in his mind, an echo of purpose. For the first time in years, Harlan Drake was no longer just the forgotten mechanic of Outpost 42. He was something more. And deep down, beneath all his doubts, he felt the dangerous spark of belonging. The silence of Outpost 42 did not last. Harlan Drake had begun to believe he might have found a fragile piece. The two hatchlings, Ember with its healing wing and Flicker with its restless energy, had turned his repair bay into something almost alive again. He taught them the basics of machines, while they taught him patience he thought long gone. Every night he listened to their soft trills and felt through the bond the warmth of trust. But peace in this galaxy never lasted. It began with the alarm, sharp, urgent, filling the station with red light. 3 incoming ships, fast, armed, and hostile. The scanners identified them with chilling clarity. Smugglers, the same group that had abandoned the hatchlings. They were coming back to claim what they had lost. Harlan's stomach sank. He turned to Ember and Flicker. Through the bond, he felt their fear, but also their desire to fight. No, he said firmly. Kids don't fight. Adults handle this. He guided them quickly into Bay, a reinforced storage unit with hidden exits. Stay here until I signal. Do not come out. Ember whimpered. Flicker pressed against the door, as if ready to break it down. Harlan crouched, resting a hand on their scaled heads. Trust me, I'll keep you safe. He sealed the bay and turned. His pulse rifle sat where it had gathered dust for years. He picked it up, checked the power cell, and breathed deep. Time to remember how to fight, he muttered. The smugglers cut through the main hatch of the outpost with military-grade torches. 6 of them entered, led by a woman with scarred cheeks and cold, artificial eyes that glowed faintly red. She smiled when she saw him. "The hermit of Outpost 42, she said. "We heard you found our property." "Not your property," Harlan said, rifle steady. "They're children. They don't belong to anyone." The woman's smile hardened. "You have no idea what they're worth. A breeding pair could fetch more than a fleet of ships." Harlan's finger rested on the trigger. "I don't care. You're not taking them." The smugglers fanned out, weapons raised. "There's 6 of us, old man. 1 of you. Do the math." Harlan's lips curled in a thin smile. "Funny thing about living alone for years. Gives you time to get paranoid. I rigged this place with enough traps to make you regret coming." To prove the point, he held up a small device with his thumb on the trigger. "And this button? It broadcasts your location straight to every patrol in the sector. You'll have lawmen and bounty hunters swarming you in hours." They hesitated. He felt Ember and Flicker's panic pushing through the bond. Desperate to help, he forced calm back at them. "Stay hidden." The leader narrowed her glowing eyes. "Bluff." Before Harlan could answer, the entire station shook. A roar rolled through the air, primal and deafening. The mother had returned. She landed on the hull with earth-shattering weight, claws digging deep into S. The smugglers froze, terror etched across their faces. Harlan felt her fury through the bond, rage at those who had stolen her children, sharpened into a blade of vengeance. "Duck," she warned through thought. Harlan dropped flat as her tail swept through the bay door, sending 2 smugglers flying like rag dolls. The others opened fire, pulse rounds sparking harmlessly against her ancient scales. She moved with impossible precision. One swipe of her claw pinned another smuggler to the floor without crushing him, leaving him helpless but alive. Her roar shook the walls, making the lights flicker. The leader shouted for retreat, scrambling toward her ship. But the mother was faster. Her throat glowed, brighter, hotter, until she released a beam of pure plasma. It tore through the ship's engines like paper, leaving the vessel a smoking ruin. The battle was over in minutes. The survivors fled or fell silent. Too terrified to move, Harlan rose slowly, rifle lowered. He surveyed the wreckage, the bodies, the smoldering ship. "That," he muttered, "was excessive." The mother turned her massive head toward him. "Disagreement. Proportional. They took children." The scarred woman dragged herself from the wreckage, her artificial eyes flickering. She stared at Harlan, then at the great beast beside him. Her voice cracked with horror. "You bonded with it. You bonded with a dragon." "Her name is Nixara," Harlan said, steady. "And yes, I did. Best choice I ever made." The woman spat, but her bravado was gone. "The guild will come for you. They always come. Profit wins." Nixara lowered her head, speaking directly into the woman's mind. "Tell the guild. Tell them dragons have a guardian now. Tell them if they come, they will not return." The woman fainted. Harlan couldn't blame her. The hatchlings burst from Bay 12, rushing to their mother's side. She nuzzled them gently, relief pouring from her thoughts into Harlan's mind. "Well done, H." "They wanted to fight," Harlan said. "Wisdom. Fighting, last option. Hiding, keep safe. Safe means alive." Harlan shook his head. "Great. Now I'm taking parenting lessons from a space dragon." The patrol ships arrived hours later, responding to his beacon. Reports were taken, poachers processed, wreckage logged. Through it all, Harlan stood with Ember and Flicker at his side, the mother's shadow cast long behind him. On the final night, Nixara found him alone in the repair bay. Question: why accept? Harlan set down his wrench, staring at the floor. "Because 20 years ago I had a family. Wife, daughter. They died in an accident. I wasn't there. I was here fixing someone else's problem while my world suffocated. I've carried that guilt ever since. Then these two showed up, and for the first time in years, I felt purpose. Maybe not replacement, but addition, a reason to get up. Understanding, similar loss, shared grief. She pressed her snout close, warmth surrounding. Then she lifted her head. Protect them. Teach them. When time comes, they will protect others. Harlan nodded. No pressure, huh? Humor. Gratitude. The next morning, Nyxera rose into the skies again, vanishing into the light of the twin suns. Harlan stood with Ember and Flicker at his feet, their golden eyes fixed on him, with trust too deep to deny. The forgotten mechanic was forgotten no more. He was a guardian now. And for the first time in decades, tomorrow felt worth fighting for.